save the machine every 6 months, just like you did on XP. The other is to return the game.
Wow.
Right? So
there's some motivation there.
Potential motivation.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me, I guess, just sort of springboard on top of that, just as far as specific guidance goes. First and foremost recommendation, like Steve said, is test things as a standard user. Right? And I would say test the entire application lifecycle as a standard user. That means install, runtime, uninstall, and update. And so you should basically be assuming that a standard user is at the machine, and that anything that requires elevation is going to require, I guess, what we call the sort of over-the-shoulder elevation. Right? Like Steve said, the credential prompt comes up, a different user who has administrative privilege comes up, enters his or her creds, and then the setup exe, let's say, for example, in this case, is running elevated. And so if you assume that it's always kind of a different user context, right, and it's the standard user at the console, then it's just going to work when a member of the admins group logs on as well. And you actually get things very, very robust with respect to your application. On top of that, just make a conscious effort to do per machine actions in the installer or the uninstaller, and only do per user actions at runtime. Right, so we've seen a lot of applications, for example, that try to register global COM classes, global type libs at runtime, and they fail, right? And then we shim them. But even better would be either register them per machine in the install, or register them per user at runtime. Right, you've got per user locations for the registry stuff for COM. You've got per user type lib APIs as well, and so it's all completely doable.
Just to make sure, is that stuff in the Vista logo document?
Most of it.
Okay.
Yeah, should be. And then, certainly last but not least, updating and patching. It's sort of the trickiest one to do, especially if you're an application that does any kind of frequent updating. I would strongly recommend taking a look at the latest version of MSI and the documentation around that. They have an excellent standard user patching story, where basically during the install you can authorize standard users to be able to patch your application later on, provided the patch is signed and the signature checks out. And I know they also did a Channel 9 video where they spoke about that and some of the other enhancements to MSI for Vista. And I would certainly suggest tracking that one down and taking a watch through it.
Okay.
There's one other thing that I'd love to be able to get out is to think about the deployability of your application. As a large companies say, I'm going to transition to standard user, one of the first things they have to do is make sure that everything that you as a standard user need to install must be deployable off of add remove programs or SMS. If your setup.exe must be run by that user for that user, it requires them to be an admin, for example. Now I need it to be installed by the SMS admin account or by group policy running as system, or however group policy attempts to install that app. So if your app isn't deployable, it becomes harder and harder. I have to crack that package and I have to make my own MSI in that corporation, and I've added cost. Whereas if I deliver a deployable package a la an MSI, that becomes pluggable. You drop it onto your enterprise server, you point group policy at it, and suddenly it shows up in my add remove programs. I click on it as a standard user, and the system installs it for me. And now I have no hands in whether or not I ever needed to elevate.
Very, very good. Well, I mean, I think that we kind of covered a lot of it. Is there anything that I left out that you guys wanted to talk about?
No, there's just, we've got hundreds of pages of documentation that you can go read now that we link off of our blog for developer guidance. I think it's 75 pages now. And
that's actually really good, though. I mean, I think that one of the key points to making sure that people adopt this and that it all works is that they can get to the guidelines and the documentation.
Yep.
But as a shareholder, I just wanted to say thanks, because it sounds to me like this is actually a really, 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 really good thing for Windows. So, very good stuff, very, very good. In fact, I'm gonna hug you. Right. Vista logo documentation. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for the interview, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And I'll put a link up on the site, to the Vista logo documentation, because I think that's really going to be a good thing for people. Thanks for the information. And if you have anything you want to add later on, just give me a call, let me know, and I'll come on back out.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Thanks so much.